got all of these projects that I just never finish, and I've had this one sitting around for like 6 months, something like that. And I wanted to start, you know, because I haven't done a build video in ages, but I wanted to start like a proper build video by, you know, starting from scratch as I usually do with some puzzles. But I really want to finish this one because it's such a cool idea that I had. I've been doing a lot of these like very crystally looking puzzles that have kind of like very sharp points to them, mainly made out of SS Megaminxes, but they don't make the damn things anymore. So if I want to keep making these kinds of puzzles, I'm gonna have to start using more readily available puzzles and also more readily available mechanisms. And I think what better way to start than to do it with a 3x3 and work from there. I've got this puzzle here, which is supposed to be an enclosed cube. Initially, that's what it was going to be. And I started cutting down a little deeper on all 6 of the hexagonal faces. You got the hexagonal cross section, and then perpendicular to those, you got your 6 faces that wrap around. I started cutting those down deeper with the intention of making the edge pieces perfectly square. Kind of hard to explain, but there'd be method to my madness. All right, so I got these 2 cores that are fused together. My first step is sanding down all 6 of the internal faces. These are the ones that the other pieces sit on, and I've got to make them nice and smooth so everything turns properly. And, well, guess it's time to fire up the old belt sander, huh? I know it's pretty mediocre, but I'm really excited. I haven't used this thing in like a year.
And like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or epoxy sculpt dust rather, the belt sander fires into life. After an entire year in storage, it's good to see this thing running again. That being said, I'm probably going to have to get a new one sometime soon, as it is starting to wear out. But even still, I sanded all the high spots on the core, and after I was done, I started looking through all the other pieces just to kind of work out which needed a little extra sanding before I put everything together. Now, this puzzle was a partially complete project to start with, and it already had been assembled, so I didn't really have to do a whole lot before I reassembled it. But I did want to go through just a couple of the pieces and see what I was working with. After I deduced that pretty much everything was fine, I reassembled the whole puzzle, and then this is what it looked like.
Alright, so that is all assembled now, and you can see what I've got here. This is a fused enclosed cube. I have 2 of them with the fused core in the center. Now, what I want to do is sand down on all 6 of these faces and try and get them so that these pieces here are just about square. Now, when I did this puzzle previously, I was actually able to put a standard 19mm Rubik's Cube sticker on this piece, and I want to do that again. However, I'm looking at some of these pieces and I kind of feel like I might have just overshot it a little bit. But we'll see what happens as I start sanding everything down. If I end up going too deep, it's fine. It just means I have a couple more stickers. But down here on the end, this is where things are going to get a little more interesting as this build progresses. But for now, let's head back over to the belt sander and sand all 6 of these faces down. Oh shit, I almost forgot. I can't believe I forgot to do this. I actually brought a tube of super glue down here specifically for this reason. When you're doing these kinds of modifications, it's always a good idea, just in the areas that you can afford to do it, just dab a little bit of super glue in that little gap there once everything is perfectly aligned. Just a little bit, it's enough, and it's very easy to remove afterwards, but this prevents subtle misalignments between the pieces when you're sanding everything down.
Before I started sanding the entire puzzle, I focused on one face, trying to get everything perfectly flat and perfectly level so that I could zero in on that surface pattern. Also, it's really hard to find Converse slippers, so just appreciate those.
What's that? 80. 80? Doesn't feel like 80. I'm just trying to sort of, I should use the shotgun for this. Testing. I'm going somewhere with this commentary, but I need a better lens. Perfect. This is a really important stage whenever you're sanding a puzzle that has multiple of the same face. If you have the freedom to go to whichever depth you choose, which in this case I do, it's always a good idea to kind of sand that first face and work out, where the kind of surface pattern is going before you start trying to emulate that on all the other faces. So what I've got here is probably about 0.5 millimeter from exactly where I want to be.
After I'd properly established where that first face was, I began to sand down all the other faces to try and meet that depth and make everything look pretty much symmetrical. It's never going to be 100% perfect, but that's where I leave that little extra bit of wiggle room for.
Alright, now the sanding is all done. I've cut to the next day because it was way too late for me to record the rest of that. I've sanded everything down to pretty much completion, and before I start disassembling everything to start fiddling around with all the pieces, there's one last little step I want to do while everything's assembled. Follow me. Alright, so now I have cut off the corner of the fused enclosed thing, whatever this is. I actually ended up cutting off both of them because due to the unique way my camera battery works, it decided to die the moment I got the damn footage. It's alright, I'm going to replace this. I was only meant to cut one end. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just this end apart. Actually, no, I have to take both ends apart because I cut both. So let's start this again. I'm sorry, I'm new to YouTube. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these ends off and I'm actually going to replace it with some other Rubik's Cube pieces because this isn't just a fused enclosed cube. I'm doing something a little more creative. Alright, so I need another Rubik's Cube. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3 of the center pieces out. Can you see me? I took inspiration from the Rainbow Rocket, which is probably one of my better puzzles. I really like the kind of the rocket leg design of that puzzle. And so I thought, I can kind of do something similar here. And one of the great things about puzzle modification is you can do whatever the fuck you want, so long as you know how to do it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 of these off, and I'm going to replace them with these and try and do something fun with extensions and see what happens. Don't know what it's going to look like, but hey, we're going to do it. So my main concern now is, actually before I take this off, my main concern now is whether or not I'm actually going to be able to do the kind of extension that I want to do. Actually, before I do this, I might just cut something. Okay, so that's a little more deeply cut. Kind of resembles the early stages of a hexagonal prism, but that's not what we're making. What I want to do is I want to take these center caps out, and then I want to build out and make like rocket legs and do something cool like that. All right, let's do 1, 2, 3. Let's do those extensions. All right, so my plan is I want to sort of mirror the faces that I've got going here, going down this way, by having these extensions come out a little bit and then come down in the same fashion. Pretty much just taking this face and bumping it up a little bit here and here, and then just bringing it back and following the cut lines here and tapering it off, kind of like a little rocket leg. So I got the epoxy sculpt mixed up, 3 equal parts, 1 for each of the extensions. And in order to not be wasteful, I'm just going to try and build them up into that shape as best I can. All right, there we go. Now we've got something happening here. These pieces, they're going to be sanded down quite a bit, so they're going to be much smaller than they are now. The proportions kind of look pretty nice though. This area up here is also going to be extended. Alright, so this video is getting very long, and I apologize for the haphazard nature of it, but I finished extending the pieces on the top that I was talking about extending. Kind of looks like a Christmas tree. Kind of looks like a... Alright, so now that I have all of these pieces extended, I've actually kind of busted up the original puzzle somewhat, try and pull all these pieces out. This is becoming a nightmare of a project, and had I known how long it would take when I first started it, I probably wouldn't have, but we're gonna get it finished because we're on the home stretch now. All I've got to do is take all of these lumpy bits that are on the outside of the cut lines in each of the pieces, I gotta cut them off, or rather sand them off, and then I'm gonna reassemble everything, and then finally I can do that final shaping. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this belt sander, I'm going to move the belt just a little over this way so it's right on the edge, and then I'm going to start sanding all of these lumpy bits off. Alright, so things are happening finally, and now that I've done all of this, my final step is to get this tip into a more or less uniform shape. I'm not sure if I'm just going to do 3 flat faces or if I'm going to try and maybe do 6 or something interesting like that. Point is that I'm ready to start sanding now, and I've got enough time in the day to do that, so I want to knock everything over in one big step. I want to sand all of this down, and I also want to sand these faces here. There's going to be 6 of them in total, and then I might just knock off a little tip on either of these 3 pieces just so that they sit right and everything's nice and flat.
Because I had no real references to the shape that I was making, I just steered towards whatever looked as proportional and as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Whenever I do these freeform shapes, the only kind of rule that I can rely on is if it looks good to the eye from a distance as well as up close. Ta-da! That is what I call a rocket ship. I kind of sanded these areas down. I felt that they were jutting out just a little too much. Man, this looks really cool. You can really kind of see that this is the original vision that I had when I first started building this puzzle. I'm really surprised to see how well it's turned out. It stands like a rocket ship. It looks like a rocket ship. Even the proportions are nice. Very reminiscent of Kevin. That was a cool puzzle that I did before in my last video. The last step I have now is to take everything apart, sand all of the pieces down, and then reassemble everything. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, the main reason that it's taken so long for this video to come out is because I have to keep filming every step. I know that's what I do, but currently I'm working like 3 jobs off camera, so it's really hard to find the time to do that. And here it is, the puzzle is finally done. Isn't that beautiful? Now that it's all done, I can finally appreciate the fruits of my labor. This sticker scheme was really the best part of the whole project. I tried something a little interesting with the top of the puzzle, going for a rainbow on one face, some kind of fractal design on another, and I did sort of a blue to green scheme here. I was really just playing around, and also the chromatic color scheme on the sides of the puzzle is just fantastic. Initially I wanted to put green on the bottom here, but I kind of didn't have enough room to make it look cool, and so I just ended it off with white here, which I think kind of works, and I'm pretty happy with it. So as you can see, the puzzle is a shapeshifter, as you kind of expected, and it's a pretty cool shapeshifter at that, especially with all of the stickers. It is 2 separate 3x3s that do not exchange pieces, but they both have their own independent solves, and I think that in terms of a puzzle, this would be pretty cool to solve because a lot of the pieces are identical, but also the stickers are not perfect, so there's just a subtle hint that they might not necessarily go where you initially put them if you are trying to solve it. This was one hell of a pain in my ass to build, mainly because
I haven't built puzzles for like a whole year outside of just stuff that I had already kind of almost finished, and so I had to relearn a lot of stuff. And I've got to say, even though this is just a Fuse Cube mod, I actually made a lot of mistakes and I relearned a lot of stuff, and it was actually really useful for me because it's taught me that I'm not now as good as I once was, and I gotta get back up to that level. I do have a lot of 3x3s, and so I wanna do some classic 3x3 mods, you know, not a 30-day 30 build series. I think I'm gonna need some time before I get back into stuff like that. Listen, I'm not a full-time YouTuber anymore. You know, I have a big boy job like everybody else in the world, but I would like to be a full-time YouTuber again because that means that I can build stuff like I used to, at the speed and pace that I used to. And I have to get back to that level, and I have to earn that level. And that's what I'm gonna do. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Hopefully the next few videos don't take as long as this one to come out. I'm gonna try and keep the projects a little simpler just so I can kind of get the pace of getting videos back out again so that you actually have something to expect. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Is that in focus? Yeah. Am I in focus?